Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This is my second video of 2021, and today I am kickstarting a new video series of 10-minute watercolor paintings. For those of you who feel like you take a long time to finish a painting, or for those of you who just feel like you actually don't have the time to sit down and start engaging in art, these videos are for you. Hopefully they will be a motivation if you finish a painting in 10 minutes to continue to work and do art and keep building up to maybe those longer paintings. This series will focus a lot less on realism and lots of detail and instead introduce quite a bit of abstraction, loose flowing lines, and washes of color that are so intrinsic to watercolor paints. So without any further ado, let's jump right in. In the interest of full disclosure, I will say that this was not the first painting I did, nor was it even the second or third. I did several different paintings that just didn't work out or I couldn't get done in 10 minutes. Some were of similar subject matter and others were of completely different subject matter. So I went through a little bit of the legwork to figure out what could be done in 10 minutes so that you don't have to. So I am going to do an abstract butterfly painting, and I am using my size 4 round tip brush. It's my favorite. If you've seen any of my other videos, you've probably heard me mention how much I love this brush, but it's really good. You can use the edge, the side of it to create sort of larger fields of color, and then use the very tip, come it to a point for fine lines. It's very versatile, so that's why I use it. I'm beginning with cadmium red light. It's a really lovely orangey type hue, so I went with that because the reference image I used was of a monarch butterfly, so I figured an orangey type color would be appropriate. The image I used for reference is from unsplash.com. They have a bunch of copyright-free images that are really, really lovely. And to give credit to the photographer, I have their image linked in the description. So I'm basically going in with very light washes of color. If I get a little too much paint on there, it's okay. I just dip my brush back into the water and then blot it on my towel. You can see a little bit to the lower right there. And then go back over and smooth it out. So it's just kind of slowly dipping in, going over in layers. And if I feel like it needs to go darker, again, not having too much water because then it'll start flowing into spaces I don't want it to. And right now I have begun to actually go back over the edges and parts that I want to be a little darker to add in just a few of those details like the lines and the dark parts of the butterfly's wing. Now you have to be careful because if it's still too wet, then when you go back over, everything's just gonna flow in together and you're not gonna get some of those sharper lines. So you do have to wait a little bit for it to dry. And I made that back wing a little darker than the front. And the front still has quite a bit of filling in that needs to be done. So that will get a little more color on it later on. But ultimately, to create contrast between the back wing and the front wing, I decided to put more color on that back one just to help it differentiate between the two. So here I'm starting to add some of those lines and details on the front wing. And again, if you get anything a little too dark, it's pretty easy to rinse off your brush, blot it on a paper towel or an old towel, t-shirt, whatever you want to use, and then go back over with the color to smooth it out while it's still wet. Again, you don't want to use too much water at that point because then it'll just start flowing all over the place. That's just how watercolor likes to work. Like I said earlier, at these parts for the fine lines and details, I am using the tip of the brush, and it's just a little bit of water and a little bit of paint. Every time I add paint to the tip of the brush and then dip it in the water, I always blot it on my towel. So you have to find a balance between how much paint, how much water you have on the brush. And thankfully, especially since we're working so fast with just 10 minutes, you can erase areas. Like when I say erase, I mean kind of blot up paint by just using the clean water and a clean brush and kind of wiping that away. Or if you need to go back over because it's too light, then you just put a little more paint on your brush and go back over. I had to do that a few times here with some of those lines. They were either too light or I got them a little too dark, so I had to kind of go back over with some water and lift some of the paint off. And if you do happen to be painting along with this video, please don't feel discouraged if you have to pause or take a little more time. I know I said ideally 10 minutes to paint, but that is really not all that much time, even if you extend it to a half an hour or 45 minutes to get to the level that you want. That is perfectly okay. And feel free to put your own spin on it. If you don't want the lines and details, that's okay. You could maybe go a little darker with the washes of color and just do the sort of silhouette of the butterfly. So I kind of felt like I got to a finish point with the butterfly. I just wanted to add a little bit of sort of abstract color, just show you what that can do when you have a lot of water and a bit of paint and working that wet into wet, how the colors just flow into each other. Creates a really beautiful kind of rainbowy effect, cloudy rainbow effect. And there I'm using, so there's the cadmium red medium again, no, light, sorry, cadmium red light, along with cadmium yellow medium, I believe is what I'm using. And I realized I wanted a little bit of contrast. I was thinking, oh, just yellow and orangey colors, that's a little boring. Let's add a little contrast in there. So I think right about now, yeah, I add a little bit of blue and then decide that wasn't really suiting my fancy, so I wanted to go with green. And you have to be a little careful because, of course, green and red are opposites on the color wheel, so if you blend them too much together, they'll turn into kind of a muddy brown. So I had to be a little careful with how those blended out. Not let them flow into each other too much. And you can do that by just either, like I added yellow there to kind of help the colors fade into each other, or you can also just go over with a mostly clean brush that's slightly damp and kind of blot it out so that they don't keep flowing into each other. And I got lazy. Instead of using a toothbrush, I just used the paintbrush I had because I was running out of time. We were almost at our 10-minute mark, so I just dipped that in water with lots of paint and flicked it along my finger to get some paint splatter on the page, which you can kind of see starting to show up. There we go, especially with that dark green. Green is a very heavy staining color, so. And finally, I think I added that cadmium red light. My finger gets very orange. And I did decide to add a signature, so I used the alizarin crimson for that. And there you go. One painting in just about 10 minutes total painting time. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed and find this useful. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and check out my other videos. I'll see you in the next one.